Welcome, and thank you so much for being here. My name's Neil Sharma, and it's my pleasure to introduce WCN's new California Wildlife Program. Through this program, WCN is supporting conservation in North America for the very first time, and we're focusing here in California on urgent issues relating to habitat fragmentation and connectivity. I'm one of the newest members to join the WCN team. I came on board this past July after about 9.5 years working on various aspects of conservation practice in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it's this need for connectivity as a way to support biodiversity and ecological integrity that's really at the forefront of what compels and motivates me, especially with the changes we have seen and continue to see in the landscape. Stepping back, we acknowledge that there's an urgent need for multifaceted approaches at state, regional, and local levels, and we're excited to apply WCN's model and energy towards collective impact here in California. I'd like to take a few moments to center around the idea of connectivity, this beautiful and fundamental principle that it is, because in a sense, connectivity truly embodies ecology. It's all about interrelationships and systems. In a place as biodiverse as California, it's important to consider connectivity at different spatial scales, different temporal scales, how it manifests differently for different species, so we can consider the nuance and detail needed to effectively address the challenges at hand. Connectivity looks like a puma or mountain lion or cougar, whichever name you might choose. An animal that needs to cover a lot of ground through different habitats across property lines, perhaps in search of a mate. It looks like a salamander. It's born in a certain type of pond and needs access to uplands to spend its adult life in rodent burrows until it returns to its birth pond to reproduce. Connectivity looks like plants and animals gradually shifting their ranges over generations in response to changing climate conditions. So connectivity is this vital thread, this essential element for healthy and resilient ecosystems, and it's the principle that's very much under threat here in California. What we're seeing with habitat fragmentation at the landscape scale is really driven by urbanization and sprawl. Along with development come roads and other linear infrastructure that can present barrier effects and contribute to direct wildlife mortality. At the landscape scale throughout the state, particularly in certain areas, this is a threat to biodiversity as a whole. A pressing example of this is what we're seeing with puma populations in California, especially in certain geographic areas. And in just a few moments here, we'll hear much more about California's pumas as I introduce the next speaker, our close colleague, Dr. Chris Wilmers. Dr. Wilmers is a professor of environmental studies at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and is the leader of the Santa Cruz Puma Project. Through Chris's work and his collaborators' work, we understand much of what we know about Santa Cruz Mountains pumas and pumas further afield, and we're very grateful to have him as a close collaborator with the California Wildlife Program and as a speaker here today. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Today I'd like to talk about mountain lion conservation in California. I've been studying these animals for the last 14 or 15 years, and so I'd like to share my perspective with you based on this research that I've done. Before I get too deeply into it, though, I just want to acknowledge that the work that I'll be presenting today has been the work of a large group of folks, including graduate students and postdocs in my labs, a number of wonderful collaborators and field biologists, houndsmen, pilot, an illustrator, hundreds of undergraduate volunteers, some funders, and some wonderful photographers who have taken the photos you'll be seeing today. So California, we've kind of got it all, right? We've got these incredible, majestic coastlines, beautiful redwood forests, these majestic oak woodlands and golden hills. All of these make for great habitat for mountain lions. But we have a problem, and that is housing. We have both not enough of it in our urban areas where we're experiencing a crisis of housing affordability and homelessness, and too much of it in our wild areas where it is destroying and fragmenting habitat, making it difficult for species like mountain lions to make a living. This sprawling type of housing development also contributes to climate change through increased vehicle miles traveled and increases the risk of wildfires, which have been devastating the state for the past 5 years. So my research for the past 14 years has focused on trying to understand how mountain lions navigate this mosaic of natural and developed landscapes, of houses and cars and human influence in general. And we've been doing this by first developing some new technology. We incorporated accelerometers into GPS collars. We calibrated these on zoo animals on treadmills. And this allowed us to essentially put a Fitbit on a mountain lion, track where they go in the environment, and how many calories they burn. So it allows us to collect data like this of male lion 36M as he travels through natural wildlands, and even comes into contact with human settlements. And we can, from these data, we can see how many calories they're burning as they navigate these different landscapes. We can see where they go. We can see what they feed on. We can see where they die and how well they survive in different kinds of landscapes. We've also been conducting experiments, as illustrated in this video here, if I can get it to play. There we go. Where we've been placing cameras at mountain lion kill sites that are connected to MP3 players and speakers. And so when the mountain lion shows up to feed, we play them sounds like the frogs in this playback right here. And that's our control. And then we also play them the sounds of humans talking to see whether mountain lions might actually fear us. And so in a second here, you'll see a video still of mountain lion experiencing talking. Here it comes in just a second here. And you can see as soon as they hear the human voices, the mountain lion takes off. This is pretty much the case with all the mountain lions we did this to. When they hear control sounds like frogs, they don't care. When they hear people talking, boom, they run away. And this has important consequences, this fear of us. And we can put that fear in the context of either these sort of remote, pristine landscapes or what we call exurban landscapes. These are places where homes are built, but fairly spread out from each other, where each home has 1 to 40 acres of land. And these exurban kinds of developments are the fastest growing kind of development in the American West, including in California. Now, these exurban areas are pretty tough for mountain lions because of that fear of humans. They get kicked off of their kill sites more frequently, and so they have to kill more, up to 50% more deer kills per year. They also have to expend more energy moving around the landscape to avoid us. This results in increased mortality and in reduced survival. If we look at the survival of mountain lions in remote versus exurban areas, as illustrated in this graph here, you can see that survival probability over time declines much more rapidly in these exurban areas. And if we place that on the landscape of the Santa Cruz Mountains and we see how that adds up across space, we see that 42% of the mountain range that we do our work in is what we would call sink habitat. This is where mountain lions are more likely to die than reproduce. And so even though you might see mountain lions in these exurban areas, these are essentially where mountain lions go to die. And that's creating a big problem for mountain lions. In addition to this sort of reduced or partial loss of habitat, it also creates problems for connectivity. And this is where mountain lions in different mountain ranges have problems interbreeding with mountain lions in adjacent mountain ranges because there are roads and development that preclude them from moving back and forth. And we see that very clearly in the pattern of genetics across the state. So this is a map here showing in white dots samples of mountain lion genetics from across the state. And the different colors are showing areas where the genetics are more similar to each other than in the areas with different colors. And so there's no reason why California should have all these different colors. There's no reason why mountain lions should have trouble moving from one of these colored areas to the other under natural circumstances. And so what's creating this are these highways and developments that preclude mountain lions from moving back and forth. This is creating a big problem, especially for animals from the Central Coast, basically San Francisco, down to the Mexican border and along the coast, where we have all these different little populations that are no longer really connected with each other. And this has been the basis for a proposed listing of mountain lions as a threatened species in this area. We can also see this connectivity problem playing out at a regional level. So in the Santa Cruz Mountains, for instance, illustrated here, San Francisco's up here, Silicon Valley right here, and this is the Santa Cruz Mountains. And what I'm showing you are the tracks of 7 or 8 dispersal age male mountain lions as they're moving around the Santa Cruz Mountains trying to find the territory of their own. And what you see is that they're confined to the Santa Cruz Mountains. They can't get out to the neighboring ranges to the east or to the south. And that's because of this connectivity problem. We can see that even more clearly at a very fine scale local level, where we've similarly colored bobcats along Highway 101 in the southeastern part of the Santa Cruz Mountains. And what you can see from this is that they are really bound in by this freeway and no longer can get across. So what can we do? Well, there's quite a bit we can do to address these problems. The good news is that California still has lots of potential to reconnect habitat that's been fragmented by roads and development. Here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, we've been working with the Land Trust of Santa Cruz County and Caltrans to preserve land on either side of Highway 17 at what's called the Laurel Curve, illustrated here in this picture, and place a wildlife tunnel under the highway, funded in part by a voter-approved bond. And at the state level, we need better policies governing how we continue to develop California to emphasize building up rather than sprawling out. And we believe the time is right to promote collaborations among groups interested in infill housing, conservation, climate change mitigation, and reducing wildfire risk. These are all powerful interest groups in their own right. And we believe that bringing them together can create a future California that's more amenable to wildlife habitat, viable wildlife habitat. So thank you very much. I look forward to answering any questions you may have. And if you'd like to visit our research webpage, please visit us at santacruzpumas.org.
So these are just some of the strategies we hope to employ in the newly created California Wildlife Program at WCN. At the local level, we can think about restoring connectivity among mountain ranges or otherwise bisected critical habitat that needs to be reconnected. And at the state level, think about policies and policy change potentially that can really help wildlife throughout the state and make those local efforts even easier to implement. Thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to future conversations about these ideas and how the California Wildlife Program might evolve.